The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Whoa, don't get too excited, but that was almost the perfect tank weekend, baby.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome to the postcast here on Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks, and the only host on tonight because Kyle Bowen, sick of these Vancouver Canucks. Now he's actually in Toronto promoting a children's book, and I promise you, this children's book, it's happy, okay? Canucks fandom doesn't have this guy totally run into the ground. But let's talk about the Canucks game tonight. Bigger picture, though, let's talk about the last couple of games. I missed the postcast last night. And, of course, the wins and losses not mattering as much for the Canucks right now, unless you're following Team Tank, baby. And I felt this way on Friday. The game on Friday, the Canucks lose 3-2 to the Sharks. It was the perfect tank game for the Vancouver Canucks. It was a game they probably deserved to win. You had Elias Pettersson playing pretty damn good, scoring a goal a year, and you still get no points. Now, in this one, they do get a point in overtime, falling 2-1 to the LA Kings. And Elias Pettersson was a guy that stood out to me tonight, even though he wasn't necessarily standing up at a lot of times. And look, I know we all have an eye to the future right now when we're looking at this Vancouver Canucks team. And one of my takes has been, if this team does go through the full scorched earth rebuild or something along those lines, that Pettersson's probably going to be a player that sticks around. I think with that cap hit, it's going to be hard to move him. He's got the no move clause. It's his choice at the end of the day. And I really do feel like, again, when I'm viewing this team as a Stanley Cup contender, where do the pieces fit? Again, I'm not saying this Canucks team is a Stanley Cup contender. We know that they're at the bottom of the barrel right now. But Pettersson, to me, would be an amazing second-line center in the Stanley Cup contender. And that really is the Elias Pettersson problem right now, right? You know, Kyle said it last year when he was feeling angry. And we all felt the same way, that this guy, in a sense, defrauded the Canucks. Plays like a superstar, gets the bag, and now he's just a great defensive second-line center. Look, he can score. He scored the great goal against the San Jose Sharks, but he's 27 years old. Is he ever getting back to that 100-point realm? I don't think so. And I felt that way coming into the season. I know Kyle was predicting 105 points. I think I said 74 points was the number I thought Pettersson would get to. But you look at tonight's game, and I thought it was a relatively rough game for Elias Pettersson, to be honest. Of course, he's got some plays. He's a talented hockey player, but 3 turnovers in the first period alone that I counted. No, he's lucky that the first LA Kings goal was called off in the offside. I mean, it was Pettersson to Kuzmenko to Trevor Moore there. He thought he was still teammates with Kuzmenko there for a goddamn moment. And then in overtime, falling down twice. The second fall leading to the Kings goal against. And I don't know what's with these guys' skates. I mean, of course, he's got all the money in the world. I was at practice the other day, and this guy's falling down as well, and he's checking his skates. Oh, what's wrong with my skates? Dude, you're just falling down all the time. I don't think it's your skates. Elias Pettersson, man, it is a problem. Again, he would be, in my opinion, a great second-line center on a Stanley Cup contender, but he is not he's not the bona fide first-line center that we thought that he would be when he was signed to that contract. Now, look, we're looking at this roster right now and thinking that anyone's available, okay? But I'm going to say right now, and I think there's 2 players I want to touch on here. Protect Tom Willander at all costs. And I think you feel the same way right now. Tom Willander, despite the fact that he is the youngest guy on this team, is one of the most impressive Canucks on the ice on a night-to-night basis. No physicality that I don't think we expected from Willander, although he was showing the same stuff at Boston University if you're watching that tape. Again, he's got the speed to close the gaps, but he's also got the physicality, not in terms of throwing bone-crushing hits, but just enough physicality to knock guys off of the puck. And we've seen some rookie blunders here from Tom Willander through the first, stretch of his NHL career here. I think for me, it's just having his back to the puck at wrong times. But man, oh man, can this guy close gaps? Can he skate away from danger? And can he move the puck up the ice? He's an incredible player to watch. And for a guy that, could have been a trade chip at some point here, whether you're looking, I guess it was more so in the offseason when you're looking for that second line center, like, do you think about parting with the guy like Tom Willander? At this stage, of course, the Canucks are selling veterans. They got to keep the young guys. But even then, I think Tom Willander is a must-keep guy. Like, I don't personally view Jonathan Lekkerimäki as a must-keep guy. Of course, at this stage of the game, when the Canucks are a bottom feeder, you keep all the young guys. It's just the way it is, unless there's some kind of bigger deal to be made out there. But to me, Tom Willander is a piece you build around. And look, man, I was scared of Zach Benson. I'm not going to lie. And even looking at the rest of the draft class behind Tom Willander, I'm like, man, who did we miss out on here? Because we got a little too horny for Tom Willander. I was having Olli Juolevi flashbacks just for a millisecond there. Not saying Tom Willander was Olli Juolevi. He's already a better NHL player than Olli Juolevi ever was. But just did the Canucks get too locked in on him in the drafting process and overlook some of the guys drafted after him? The Zach Bensons, the Axel Sandin Pelikas of the world. But you go through that list, and even though there's good NHL contributors, there's not a lot of guys that you're like, damn, I can't believe the Canucks missed out on that guy. You got Daniil Butt, Zachary Benson, Braden Yeager, Matthew Wood with the Nashville Predators off to a good start, Samuel Honzek, Vancouver Giants, Axel Sandin Pelika, Colby Barlow, Oliver Moore, Edward Chalet. Those are the handful of players drafted after Tom Willander there. And look, Tom Willander's emergence is making me think about something else, because one of the other most impressive Canucks has been Filip Hronek. And look, we've heard the reports out there that the Canucks, Filip Hronek's an untouchable piece, or he's a piece they don't want to trade. I don't think that should be the case when you have a guy like Tom Willander on this team. I don't think that should be the case when you're on the precipice of losing a generational talent, the best player in franchise history. Filip Hronek's a nice piece to have, but if there's a team willing to blow your socks off with an offer, you got to see if Filip Hronek will waive that no trade clause, the no move clause. I mean, look, this is a guy that's played on losers for most of his career too, right? A guy that's probably deserved better. I mean, he got drafted by the Red Wings, when they were in full scorched earth mode. Getting way too many minutes on a team where he wasn't quite ready for it. But man, oh man, he is a solid player as well. And look, I know the LA Kings team tonight that the Canucks just faced, and even the San Jose Sharks team from last night, neither of these teams are that good. I walked away from this game thinking, man, oh man, the LA Kings kind of botched their own opportunities as well in terms of building a contender after the Stanley Cup wins. And it's also a reminder of how hard it is to win in the NHL. I mean, the LA Kings had top 10 picks as well. Top 5 picks. Quinton Byfield goes 2nd overall. Alex Turcotte goes 5th overall. They had those picks. And still, they're a team that, to me, is trending downwards right now. And that is a bit of a problem for the LA Kings. But for the Vancouver Canucks, again, Filip Hronek, for me, he's a guy that you got to think about moving, I think. If this is going to be the full scorched earth rebuild mode. All right, I'm going to wrap up with some comments here. Look, I'm by myself. The kids are crying. All right, let's wrap up with a few more comments as we get out here. Short one today on Locked On Canucks. What are you the people saying, baby? Too short in the comments saying a 2C at $11 million, LOL, RIP. And look, that's just the reality nowadays with Elias Pettersson. And look, he's looked better this season. A better player than certainly he was last season. And look, I feel bad shitting on the guy considering that this is his best month since November of last season. That was the last time he put up 14 points in a month. And the time before that he had more than 14 points in a month was back in January of 2024 when he was the NHL's 3rd star of the month with 14 goals, 21 points in 13 games. That was the last time we saw Elias Pettersson look like a star player. It's been almost 2 years now. And sure, he's gotten better, and sure, that's great for him. But he's now a 2C on a Stanley Cup contender, I'm telling you. That's just the way it goes. Let's show Aaron Phil, the Marisserie in the comments. PD looked good too, actually. He's getting better and better. LA ice made him trip in OT. Yeah, let's blame the ice in LA. It's that's not the reason Elias Pettersson's fallen down in the LA game. It's not the reason he's fallen down in practice. It's the ice, man. That's great. That's great. That's the way it goes. Let's see what else. You know what? Let's rip through report cards quick, okay? Because I got lots of thoughts on the players tonight. The kids, they've stopped crying for a minute. Now it's time for me to cry. Talking about these Canucks. Let's rip through it. 5 minutes for report cards. All right, the Vancouver Canucks against the LA Kings tonight. I talked about Tom Lynn, and here's one thing I actually want to do with report cards. Yeah, I was thinking about this watching the game. I want to shout out the guys who are the true tank commanders right now in the Vancouver Canucks. Like, who is really standing out as a guy who's helping the cause in terms of the tank here in Vancouver, because we know that is what matters the most. Tom Melander tonight, I'm giving him an A. Love this game. Brock Besser, a bit of a rough game at even strength, to be honest. And I know David Kampf is his first line or his center right now, and that certainly doesn't help things. Connor Garland was missing from the lineup tonight, but Besser and Kampf were the worst Canucks in terms of expected goals for differential tonight. Brock Besser, I'll probably give it a C+ overall. P.O. Joseph, shout out to the block. It says something about DPD too, right? I know DPD has really struggled, but second game of back-to-backs, and P.O. Joseph gets in for DPD. P.O. Joseph, good for him, but I'm starting to wonder if DPD could use a bit of a stint in the minors right now. Like, that's just how I'm feeling about his game of late. P.O. Joseph, let's give him a C+. Archie Baines, he was kind of caught in no man's land on the Kings' first goal by Andrei Kopitar. Rick Dollywall with the slip today that Archie Baines was going on waivers. He deleted the tweet. I reached out to him, and of course it was a mistake. I had the article all ready to go for Daily Hive about Baines on waivers, so that's why you always got to verify things in this business. But Archie Baines gets a C-. Just another way too quiet night, too timid and making mistakes out there. Philip Perron gets the A-. Drew O'Connor, give this guy a B. I mean, look, good heads-up play on the Evander Kane goal. I wouldn't say that he's a tank commander right now. Archie Baines probably gets the tank commander nod right now. Maybe that's why he's in the lineup for Vancouver Canucks. And I hate saying that about the Surrey boy. Trust me, that kills me on the inside. Jonathan Lekkerimäki. Let's talk about Jonathan Lekkerimäki's debut back into the lineup. And look, you saw his ice time kind of creep up as the game went on. Again, certainly an imperfect player at even strength, but nice to see him get an opportunity on the Canucks top line with Evander Kane and Elias Pettersson towards the end of the game. And a guy who doesn't look at a place in the power play, but didn't really get the prime opportunities tonight when the Canucks were wheeling and dealing the puck. Marcus Pettersson, hard to be too harsh on the guy. Jonathan Lekkerimäki, let's give him a B-. Marcus Pettersson gets the puck to the face. I really don't want to be too mean to him. Let's give him a C+. Elias Pettersson, I'm giving a C- tonight. I thought he was great in San Jose. I thought he was kind of mediocre tonight. Quinn Hughes right now, got to give the guy credit for playing over 30 minutes tonight right now. My one theory about Quinn Hughes, and I'm just going to chuck out there a little carelessly, I wonder how much this guy is, like, he's playing the big minutes, but he's avoiding contact. If you look at his hits right now, I think he has one hit this season. I know he's not a guy who hits very often, but he typically has like 20, 30, 40 hits a season. I wonder if he's a guy that's avoiding a bit of contact and just trying to make sure he stays healthy for the Olympics. And look, it feels a little harsh. He's playing big minutes. He's trying to stay on the ice. He's trying to win games. I'm not saying that he's not trying out there, but I do wonder just slightly if he's trying to make sure that he plays in the Olympics. I know how important that would be to him to play with his brothers and on that stage. Let's give Quinn Hughes a B+ tonight. Kiefer Sherwood, give him a B. Ratu. I feel for the guy, man. He has the big celly, the big smile on his face, scores the goal that was ruled called back on the offside. Guy can't catch a break right now. Overall game was just kind of another typical Ratu game, I thought. I'm going to give him a C overall. Tyler Myers, tank commander Tyler Myers, man. He's getting the tank commander label. And honestly, he played better tonight than he's played recently. I'd probably give him a C+ overall. Max Sasson, shout out to this dude. Again, getting on the ice in overtime. He's earned the trust of Adam Foote. Adam Foote also is in the tank commander category as well. Max Sasson gets a B. David Kampf, definitely a tank commander. I think the skating's been better for David Kampf. You see a couple of good defensive plays, but man, oh man, this guy is a borderline NHL player. Let's just be real about it. I give David Camp a C-. Jake DeBrusk, this is one of the weirdest things about Jake DeBrusk, and I didn't see this coming. And I know some of you shout out to Dan Jardine in the Discord posting it. Saw it online earlier. Jake DeBrusk is among the 10 fastest players in the league this season, at least in terms of his top speed. And look, I've noticed the speed more. And it makes me wonder that, the hockey sense isn't quite there with poor Jake DeBrusk because, he's just not good at even strength. Getting it done on the power play, but the even strength game leaves a lot to be desired. Giving him a C. Evander Kane scores the goal tonight. Look, he's looked better of late. You got to give Evander Kane credit for that. He has looked better of late. He's still taking dumb penalties and, just that north-south game. And I'm going to give a B tonight. Again, better game for Evander Kane, but the fact he's your top line winger it's no surprise to me that the Canucks are one of the worst teams in the league when Evander Kane is on your top line and playing the minutes that he does. Linus Karlsson with some chances tonight. Let's give him a B. And Kevin Lankinen, who made it back from this game out of nowhere, was practicing in Vancouver yesterday, flies down, plays tonight. Look good doing so. Let's give him a B as well. All right, the kids aren't crying, so I'm going to run a quick ad here. Shout out a sponsor and get back with a couple more takeaways. I want to touch a bit about suitors for Sherwood and your comments as we wrap up here on Locked On Canucks. All right, let's shout out our friends over at Drip Drop, baby. Drip Drop, and you don't stop. All right, when I'm hydrated, everything just works better. Works better. My focus, my energy, my mood, below the belt. Let's go, baby. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power, no matter what my day looks like. And you know what, man? That healthy stuff, you're trying to drink healthy or eat healthy, and sometimes it just doesn't hit the spot. It hits the spot with Drip Drop, okay? So go check out all the flavors there. I'm a big strawberry guy, man. Okay, let's go. Right now, Drip Drop is offering our podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing at its best with a Drip Drop. And of course, let's shout out our friends over at FanDuel, baby. Are there odds for their picking first overall? Because the Canucks they're climbing that list, baby. Let's go. Man, oh man, I did check today, and Colorado Avalanche, no surprise here, by far the favorites to win the Stanley Cup right now. They're the favorites at plus 390. They're 400. Maybe they lost tonight. A little adjustment there. The Vancouver Canucks, they're still ahead of some of the competition. If you're believing, man. Actually, look, the Pittsburgh Penguins are actually far below the Vancouver Canucks, and they're in a playoff spot right now. Shout out to Archer. She loves rough night. Lets in 4 goals on 9 shots. Maybe that makes some Canuck fans feel better. But man, just remember, when you're betting on sports, go check out FanDuel. Right now, customers get $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's on FanDuel.com. All right, we back here on Locked On Canucks. My name, Trevor Begg. Shout out to Kyle Bowen over in Toronto right now. Shout out to my kids for crying and then going back to sleep, man. That's just lucky, man. They know I got to get things off my chest with these Vancouver Canucks. And, one thing I was thinking about a lot today was Kiefer Sherwood. How much I love this guy. And the take I had a month ago where I said, you got to re-sign this guy. The caveat was if they're completely out of it, of course you got to trade him. And that's unfortunately where the Canucks find themselves now. Of course, a lot of teams in the rumor mill in terms of Kiefer Sherwood from a couple different sources out there. The Boston Bruins obviously are a big one. The Boston Bruins to me are an interesting team because right now, if Kiefer Sherwood were to get traded, a second round pick doesn't feel like enough. And that's reportedly what the Canucks ask starts with. But a second round pick, if Kiefer Sherwood got traded straight up for a second round pick, I'd be pissed. And I think you'd be pissed too. Can you get a first round pick out of a team? Or can you get a second plus a good young player? I think that's the template you're looking for right now with Kiefer Sherwood. And that's to me why the Boston Bruins are an interesting team. Because the Boston Bruins have 4 first round picks over the next 2 drafts. They have their own picks in 26 and 27. They have the Leafs unprotected first in this draft. That one's not going anywhere. They also have the Panthers 2027 first overall pick. And now I think with the Canucks, the struggle right now for them probably is at least maybe this is my trauma, but the Jim Benning moves. Like, are they just going to go out and target a guy who's 23, 24 years old and, try to speed this thing up? That's the impatient approach. I think about guys that we talked about over the summer, like the Kirby Docks, the Alex Newhooks, even with the Devils like Dawson Mercer, because the Canadians and the Devils are both two of the 9 teams who have been mentioned in Kiefer Sherwood rumors of late. It just feels like you got to go with younger assets with legitimate upside, even if they're still prospects, and some high draft picks. And the Canucks should be asking the moon for Kiefer Sherwood because they're the only sellers on the market right now, more or less, right? Like, you got Nashville. They've been looking to make moves, but they got more guys with term there. It's a bit tougher. They don't have a clear-cut, low-cost pending UFA like Sherwood to trade away. Teams like the Calgary Flames, you hear from their owner that they don't want to rebuild. The Canucks really are an island by themselves when it comes to rebuilding, or at least being a seller right now, I should say. And to me, it screams like you got to get at least a first round or a second plus for Kiefer Sherwood. And circling back to Boston again, 4 first-round picks in the next 2 drafts. Could they get one of those first-round picks out of the Bruins? In terms of their assets too, like Fraser Minton, he's already been traded from Toronto to Boston. Toronto, man, that's unbelievable. Toronto makes me feel better about myself. So thank you, Leafs, for still sucking. But Fraser Minton, he kind of would fill that high motor if Sherwood were to get traded. 21-year-old Vancouver native, plays center as well. My issue is he projects to be more of a third-line guy, I would say, based on what I've seen. But he'd be a guy to watch as well. But again, I think when we're theorizing what the return could be for Sherwood, you just got to hope the Canucks pull their heads out of their rear ends and don't just trade him for a 24 or a 25-year-old player. That cannot be the move for this organization. Some of the other teams on the list, I'm going off the top of my head here. I know New Jersey was on there. Montreal was on there. Minnesota was on there. They're an interesting team to me. I mentioned this earlier this week, but Liam Öhgren, Jonathan Lekkerimäki's old teammate from Djurgårdens and the World Juniors for Sweden. He's playing in the NHL with Minnesota right now. They're stocked with young prospects. I wonder if you could get a guy like that out of Minnesota if they want to buy on Kiefer Sherwood, and there they are right back in the thick of the playoff race as well. So just some teams to keep an eye on. I did a big list, 9 teams. Go check it out on Daily Hive, or don't. But as we wrap up here, let's get to your comments again here on Locked On Canucks. Hey, Callum Sandu, baby. Let's shout out this comment. And part of the reason I'm a little late tonight, I had to write a Whitecaps post-game article for Daily Hive. And the Whitecaps have been such a nice tonic when you have to talk about and cover this team. I don't want to complain. I'm still blessed to do this, man. Rebuild or winning this cup, man. I'm blessed to do this no matter what. But the Whitecaps, they win tonight. They're in the MLS final. My title for this episode is going to be like Vancouver invades California. Vancouver takes over California, with Vancouver beating San Diego, and if the Canucks could have beat the Kings. Of course, that didn't happen. But shout out to the Whitecaps. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again, and every dayers know. When I watch the Whitecaps play, I see a team out there. I see guys who play for each other. I see guys throughout that lineup picking up the slack, stepping up in big moments, picking each other up, communicating out there. Of course, they have a great leader in Thomas Muller as well, but they play like a goddamn team. This Canucks team, when I see them on the bench when I'm at the rink, when I see them at practice, when I see them in games like tonight, I see a bunch of individuals out there. Like, sure, there's some communication. You saw Quinn Hughes talking to Lekkerimäki about where to go on the podcast. But you got a core of guys who have been together for a long time there that are not playing as a team. And that's the biggest problem with the Vancouver Canucks. I'm going to fire back at this because I want to shut this out. I know it's turning to an MLS show, but Drew Mangus is saying the MLS is trash. I felt that way for a long time. I'm not going to lie. I refused to watch the MLS even with the team in Vancouver. I said, if I'm going to watch soccer, I'd rather watch Premier League or Champions League. And of course, it's better competition. But the MLS has really grown on me. It doesn't feel as Mickey Mouse as it used to. You got some bigger names there. And there's lots of good soccer players in the world, man. And look, I've been slowly getting more into the Whitecaps, and being at that playoff game against LAFC last week was one of the best damn soccer games I've ever seen, with the drama, the intensity, the back and forth. That was insanity. Should have won more for Drew Magus, saying trading Sherwood won't be worth it. Man, dude, Drew Magus, man, you'll go outside. Eat some vegetables. Go take a walk, man. Look, you see all the rhetoric out there about how it's going to be tough for the Canucks to extract value for Sherwood, and teams saying like, oh, which idiot team is going to overpay for a guy shooting 28%? But look, we're talking about Sherwood earlier this season as one of the best free agent signings in Canucks history. And I know that was kind of a shitty list when we look back at it. It's kind of like Burrows and Sherwood and Tanev and Hamuse and all that stuff. Even dating back to the 80s and 90s, there's not a ton of guys who stand out. But Kiefer Sherwood is a valuable player. A guy who, again, on a contender's probably on a third line, but can play on your second line. He's going to play his ass off. He can play PK, power play, score goals. Come on, you know the deal. So the Canucks should be shooting high on Kiefer Sherwood. And look, I mentioned it earlier this week. If Scott frickin' Lawton, and I know he's a center, but he is a shittier player than Kiefer Sherwood, and I think by a decent margin, if Scott Lawton can fetch you a first and a 22-year-old young player with some promise, that's what you got to be targeting for Kiefer Sherwood. I know he's a winger. He's not a center. I know he's 30. But that's what you got to be targeting. Deals like that, because there's 31 GMs out there. A lot of them think differently than others. And there's got to be one team out there. The Boston Bruins scream out that team if they truly want to buy. That's going to, overpay for Kiefer Sherwood. You got to get on that market right now. Cosmic Dragons in the comments saying a lot of teams interested in Sherwood could get us a first. It should get us a first, or again, a second, and a young player with some promise. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Last comment to GL Rebirth. Fire sale, please. Yeah, I mean, look, this Canucks team isn't good. And I've said it before. I'll say it again every day. Their talent equals more than the sum of their parts. But when you don't play like a team and you don't play for each other, this is what you get. And when you have a head coach who should be having this team play like a top 5 defense and they're the worst defense in the NHL, you're completely cooked. And it took till January last year for Colin to say the Canucks were cooked, but we're saying it pretty early on here. This Canucks team, barring a miracle, is cooked. Fire sale time. I'm all for it, man. Let's do something that we've never done before. Whether it's a fire sale or not, we got you covered for all of it here on Locked On Canucks. Report cards, grading the players, our takes, boom, bam. One love to you and you for tuning in. Again, one love to Bile Cowan. Time for bed, man. One love to Kyle Bowen, one love to my kids. I appreciate you for tuning in on Locked On Canucks. You can help out the show by liking and subscribing on YouTube. Hit that goddamn like button on the podcast side. Follow us. Leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. That all helps us out a lot. One love, and I'll talk to you next time here on Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.